Hello everyone and welcome to another Armored Core Verdict Day video. As promised, this week will be a build showcase, although there was a slight issue in that I was originally planning on including some PvP footage in this, but I was really tired the past couple days because of the sun, and I wasn't able to really record anything. So I'll be trying, in the future, I'll try to record the PvP footage throughout the week and edit it at the end. But yeah, so this build is a medium biped that is actually very light and very poorly armored for a medium biped, but it's also extremely fast and it's very good at running in to smash someone's face in pretty quickly with a shit ton of damage all at once. It's very much a spike damage build. It's not going to do very well in continuous fights, so you're going to get in, do your damage, and get out. And you're going to do that over and over again. So this build will be quite different. It'll be quite different in some ways, very similar to others to my previous build, the quad. On the front hands, we have two heat howitzers. These fire a spread of grenades, somewhat like a shotgun. They don't lock on, so you have to aim them yourself, which makes this build rather skill-based. But they're extremely powerful and will kill anything in seconds. Well, not really. No, not quite in seconds, but they'll do a lot of damage all at once. And so if you get good at hitting with them, you'll be able to kill most things. So they're pretty reliable that way. Now, on the backhands, which are now in the front, we have two pulse guns. Pulse guns are useful in that they hit the things that howitzers have a hard time with, usually quads and light bipedals. These pulse guns in particular, I chose them because they have really good spike damage, and they don't pierce armor quite as well as some of the other types, but they do really well against unarmored targets, and they don't have as much strain when you fire them, so that's why I chose them. And the shoulders are some rockets, or not rockets, missiles, BTF missiles. We'll talk about those in a bit. So, now into the assembly. Also, if you thought this AC looked funny, it's because it has a very small head. This HDY F08, this head I chose because it has a good mix of speed, scanning, and camera. So as you can see, it has stability computation of 1250, camera of 930, and scanning of 150, which the scanning is like average, but the camera and the stability are all pretty high. So it's not quite as high as some of the other heads, but I chose it because not a lot of the other heads offer a good mix of scanning and speed. This one over here does to some degree, but it's also very heavy and costs more green. The core is actually kind of interchangeable. I kind of just went with this core because I wanted to get like some CE defense to block out incoming CE missiles and heat machine guns. But you could really realistically go with any core that fits on this build. You could go with the unmodified version of this core. I just chose this one because it has a good recon count and good energy conductivity. Otherwise, it's not really special. You could go with any of these really, and you could get significantly better defenses. But most of them also have reduced recon count, so that's why I didn't go for those. Recons are useful, so I like having a lot of them. These arms are chosen specifically because they are double slot. That means you can whatever shoulder unit you have equipped is doubled. You fire twice as many of whatever you have in there. It's really good for doing a lot of damage at one time. It's also really bad for your ammo. You're gonna go through your ammo a lot faster. These legs, I chose these legs because they're fast, they turn fast, and they can carry all this shit that I've mounted on the AC with relative ease. So that's why they're there. So now we're gonna talk about the weapons. So heat howitzers, like I said, they don't lock on, and they do a lot of damage. As you can see, that CE attack power is 3,800 or 3,086. 3,086 is a lot of damage even for a single shot, but this heat howitzer fires 5 at a time. So if you hit someone with 5 shots for 3,086, you're going to do a lot of damage. Now, if you double that and you hit someone with 10 shots for 3,086, then you're going to be doing even more stupid damage. So, heat howitzers are really good. They're really useful for doing just like tons of damage at once, and they go through almost all armor. Very similarly to like the Sarkoza, but they take a lot more skill to use because they have a short range, and you have to manually fire them yourself. So if you're not good at aiming at things or predicting where people are going to be, then heat howitzers are not for you. I also chose them because they're very lightweight and they fit on this build easily without having to compromise on the armor or the speed. VTF missiles. That KE attack power is really terrible, you would say. The ammo capacity is okay, the reload time is really long, the firing range is decent, the weight is really high, as all KE missiles, like all KE missiles have really high weight. But that KE attack power looks really low. You would wonder why I would use such a missile. Well, the reason is because the KE explosive force over here, in other words, the damage it does when it explodes on impact, is 2,489, which is stupid high. That's like in the range of most sniper rifle shots. And you can fire 3 of these at a time, with the max locks of 6, or of 3. With the max locks of 6, I mean, damn it. With the max locks of 3, you can fire 3 of these in a single volley of missiles. And then when you double them by having double slot arms, then you can fire 6 at a time. That's what I meant. But yeah, these missiles are really good because they do a lot of damage in a volley, and they're kind of short range because they're not too accurate, but they have big explosions and they do lots of damage very quickly. So they're very useful. They're also, as an alternative, you could go with like these super heavy missiles right here, but these are like super short range, and with double slot arms they just don't work because you only get 5 shots of them, and you're gonna go through all that instantly. So that's why I went for these. They have decent ammo, really good damage, and they work really well with this setup. Pulse guns, like I said, they do good spike damage, and they're really good against unarmored targets. This pulse gun in particular only does 1,149 damage, but it does it with 6 shots. So again, going back to what I said with the heat howitzers, 6 shots of 1,149 is really good. 12 shots of 1,149 is even better. And you also have decent ammo capacity. They don't drain a lot. They don't weigh a lot. So I chose a lot of short-range weapons on this because they don't have a lot of weight, and they let me take advantage of these missiles. They mix well with the missiles. So there's that. Now for the FCS. Because my heat howitzers do not use lock-on, I can kind of use whatever FCS I want to, and so I chose to use this FCS because it has the best missile performance. It also has a wide enough lock-on size, being like the second largest, or no, the third largest technically, but the second largest one doesn't really count. So this is basically the second largest FCS in the game, and it has decent range. And so because it's a large FCS, it works very well with the pulse guns as well as the missiles. So it's pretty good. It's a pretty good mix that way. I like it. You could go with the 303 for a shorter range, but there's no reason to, like literally no reason to, unless you want less energy consumption. But that's not a huge issue for this build since this is a spike damage build, so you're not going to be focused on prolonged firefights. Now again, in the essence of being a spike damage build, I went for a high capacity generator. This is a very heavy generator, but it also has stupid high capacity and good output. So because of that, what I can do with this is I can basically run in, do a lot of damage, and then have plenty of energy to get out, or to go for another attack if I need to. So that's why I chose this particular generator. You could go with any of the high capacity generators really, but I chose this one just because it has the highest overall stats, and it fits on the build. The Tokonatsu booster. This is one of my favorite boosters because it has really good power for its efficiency. It also has decent control. So I chose this one because it would let me get in, do a lot of damage. It would let me get in and without burning too much of my energy, but also maintaining a really good speed. And since this build has no armor really, I mean 1566 and 1220 is decent for a midweight, but it's not high at all. Not by any stretch of the imagination. It's enough to block out some like basic weapons, like anti-lightweight weapons, but I'm not going to be dealing with like medium to high power weapons with this AC. So because of that, I'm basically trying to take advantage of all the speed that I can get out of this, combined with high turning performance, to get in behind someone, shoot them in the back, and then get out. So there's that. So then, now we'll talk about, I guess you could talk about alternates. For these, the important part is that these arms have a combination of high firing stability and double slots, so that's why I chose them. Realistically, you could use any double slot arm if you want to build for different defenses, but these are the lightest, and so they fit the best on this AC. Legs, you could go with anything I guess, but I chose these because they're the fastest and have the best turning performance. If you switch to those, you lose 40 points of turning. Switch to those, you lose like 60 points. You lose like even more. You lose like 100 points. Yeah, you lose exactly 100 points of turning there. So you lose a lot of turning if you switch to the other legs, although not as bad as some legs. So that's why I chose these, because they have the best turning. They have the best mix of turning and speed. I believe the frequency legs, wherever they are, yeah, these right here, these frequency and fragrant legs are going to be about as fast, but they have a lot less turning. They're not bad, but they also have really high drain, so I don't use them too much. They're good. I don't know, this one, these two. Yeah, fragrant and frequency, there we go. Yeah. So they're definitely not bad, but I don't use them. They don't really fit my style. They're definitely usable though if you like going fast and have decent armor. But I just went for max turning on this thing. So there. Alternate generators, if you wanted to, you could go for a high output generator. It would make it a little bit harder to like. It would make it a little bit harder to go in and get that spike damage, but it would make it easier to keep moving if you aren't good at managing your energy. Boosters, you could use any high power booster. If you built like a more defensive variant, you could go for an acceleration booster to get more consistent energy output. That way, if you wanted to go for like the combination I talked about in previous videos, where it's like a high output and then an acceleration type booster for basically infinite boost. Yeah, you can do that. I wouldn't recommend it on this particular AC because you do lose some speed, and with spike damage, getting in and getting out quickly is important. So you could, but I wouldn't recommend it. You could also go for this thing. If you're really good at managing your energy, this one would probably work a little bit better because you will be able to get in and get out that much faster. But you have to be really good at managing your energy movement to really make use of this thing. It is very fast though. It is a very fast booster. It's the fastest booster in the game. So there's that. Alternate weapons, you could easily go for any other heat howitzer. I just chose these because they have the highest damage and the most ammo. If you go for some of like these rapid fire heat howitzers, they don't do nearly as much damage, and they also empty their magazines extremely quickly. So that's the main reason I didn't go for those. They do like really good DPS, but unless you're really good at hitting someone consistently, then DPS of howitzers is kind of iffy. You could go for these too if you like the increased accuracy on them. They're not going to do nearly as much damage, but they do okay damage. So if you like them, then you can use them. They're also slightly faster, so maybe you could go for different arms or something like that. These are basically going to be slightly more accurate, so they're going to have a tighter spread on their shots, but they're not going to do as much damage and they don't have quite as much ammo. They're also slightly faster, so if you're having a hard time hitting people, then you can definitely go for these over the K16. The K14 and the K16 are basically the same thing, just with slightly different stats. For missiles, like I said, you could go for like this large missile, which does a lot of damage, but is not very accurate. Or you could go for... I wouldn't recommend going for another VTF missile because the Sazanami 2 kind of just outclasses all the other VTF missiles because it has so much raw damage. Vertical missiles, yeah, they're more like mid-long range. I wouldn't recommend them. High-speed missiles are the same thing, mid-long range. Spread missiles, you could make it work, but spread missiles don't do a lot of damage. So you'd have to be relying on getting your hits off with the howitzers a lot more. Spread missiles are cool because they have a lot of impact force. So they can stun people if you're having a hard time catching them, but it really depends on what you like. And if you go for the spread missiles, then you'd want to switch to single slot arms. That way you don't go through all your ammo too quickly. Because that's one of the main advantages of the VTFs is that it has really good damage and it also has high ammo capacity. So if you take advantage of that with the dual slot arms to increase the damage output even more, you're not going to burn through your ammo too quickly, and you will do a lot of damage. So there's that. You could also go for CE missiles, but I wouldn't recommend it because CE missiles have a hard time breaking armor like VTFs and other KE missiles do. So you're gonna have a hard time getting through armor with any of these. And like you'll find like high armor targets that are just gonna laugh at CE missiles. Rockets you could definitely do. Flash rockets, heat rockets, rocket launchers, you could all do if you're good at them. If you're good at them, they would work with this build because you just do a lot of damage really quickly. Heat rockets are the most accurate. Rocket launchers are gonna do the most damage. And flash rockets are gonna blind people, but flash rockets would be more if you want to go for like a pure support role. And ultimate weapons, obviously no. Ultimate weapons are cool, but kind of silly, so they're not very useful. So then, because the enemy AI, the basic AIs in the AC test are kind of weak, I decided to load up a UNAC. This is an enemy tank UNAC. It's a lightweight tank with dual cannons. They're going to hit really hard if I fail to dodge them. So this is going to be basically if I stay at mid-range trying to fight this thing, I'll just die. So yeah, because I don't have any real health or armor. So right there. There he is. He's got good defenses all around and really hard hitting weapons. Which is how you should build a tank. Not like a retard like the basic AI tank. Also, I can wall jump off of him because well, no, don't stand, don't. Okay, there. So that's what I'm talking about. Like those things hit really hard. Ow. Okay, stop fucking around. So yeah, you don't fuck with tanks. At least if you're a moron like me, you don't fuck with tanks. If you're good at the game, then you can fuck with tanks all you want. So it's constantly trying to face me because that's how the AI bots work. But in reality, a person probably wouldn't be trying to face you, especially if they're in a tank. They would try to focus on getting away from you or getting into the right spacing for their weapons. So right here, because I have a high output generator, I can use a lot of energy at once. So I'm gonna do that right now. Nope. Damn it. Missed there. But yeah, as long as I can keep getting those shots off. See, he's already down to 1,000 health in like 20 seconds or something. And this is a very mobile build, so if I need to fight someone else who's mobile, like a heavy bipedal or a quad or something like that, I can adapt and kill them pretty quickly. So that's what's nice about this build, is that you do a lot of damage very quickly and it's highly mobile. The only problem is that you can't really stay in sustained fights, or you have to rely on basically on ambushing someone to do a lot of damage very quickly and then getting out. So if you were playing this in like a team environment, you would want to find like the high priority target, like a tank or a quad, get in, do a lot of damage to that one dude, and then get out. So that way, while everyone else while the enemy team is distracted, your guys can get in and do a lot more damage. Or like if there's like an enemy that's doing a lot of damage to your squad because like someone has like missiles and they're just bombarding you, then you can go in and take care of that dude pretty quick. And so the main advantage this build has over the quad is that it has a lot more speed, so it's a lot more effective at taking out like a single target. Whereas the quad is going to go in and basically just kill whoever gets in front of it. Excuse me. So now to showcase how the build works against a quad, or basically whenever you can't use the heat howitzers, I'll load up another quad, because quads are typically weak to TE. A lot of people build their quads defensive for TE now because they're scared of pulse guns, but if you find one that isn't, then this will work. Or if you're fighting like light bipedals and stuff like that. Let's pull out the pulse guns, and here. So this thing has armed with laser rifles. Those are going to hurt if I get hit by them. I said that this quad is kind of retarded, so maybe I should have built a better one for this. Like, built a better enemy to fight against. But yeah, basically as you can see there, the quad has a hard time dealing with the missiles. And so those are going to do a lot of damage very quickly. And so the combination of the missiles and the pulse guns will do a lot of damage to quads very quickly, but you'll obviously going to eat a lot of damage in return if the enemy knows where you are. Like if someone knows where you're coming from and they can prepare for it, then they can deal with this build very easily. But if they don't, then you're going to do a lot of damage. Let's try and find another build, another enemy UNAC that I can showcase this against. I do have some, don't I? Oh, or yeah, maybe we can use one of the presets. Actually, no, we don't. Let's not do that. Let's I mean, I think the tank was one of the best showcases of how this build works. Oh, we'll fight against this light bipedal named Mighty Mouse. So this is an option. This is a scenario where I would have the option of using either the howitzers or the pulse guns. But because the pulse guns are a lot more accurate, I'm going to go for those. It'll make my life a little bit easier. It'll drain more of my energy, but I'll kill them a little bit quicker probably. And this is what I'm talking about, where you have to get in, do your damage, and then get out. Right there, because I wasn't able to get out quickly enough, they were able to intercept my missiles and also, you know, do some damage. This is actually one of my best UNECs, ironically enough, considering that it's the lightweight.
System command mode.
It's right there. So it's a very that UNEC is really good, but it's also kind of light, so it also dies very quickly. So that's an example of what would happen if you went up against like a lightweight, an enemy lightweight. And I think that's a pretty decent showcase of how this build works. It's a pretty fun, effective build, especially in a team environment where someone else can distract the enemy for you. But by yourself, if you're good, you can make this work and you can kill most people with it. The only problem comes in when you're fighting like super defensive tanks or like quads that are going to float way out of your range. So again, if someone's like really good at staying away from you, then you're not going to be able to do too much to them. Especially since like the VTF missiles, while they're dangerous and they're pretty accurate, they're also kind of slow. So if someone gets behind cover, then the missiles will just kind of explode against the walls and do nothing. So that's another flaw of this build. But the advantages are really nice. I like that you can just do a lot of damage very quickly with this build. So if you're interested in making a build like this and want to tell me what you would change, then that would be cool. Because I'm always interested in hearing what people want to change in Armored Cores. A lot of people have different playstyles. It really just depends on what you like and what you want to do. Because like this is a build that's focused on speed, damage, and handling. So at the expense of all bulk. And the only reason I went for a medium biped instead of like a light biped is because there's no way in hell you're going to fit a combination of dual slot arms and VTF missiles on a light biped. I mean, like, we could try. Let's see, if we switch to a light bipedal legs with good carrying capacity, these, and then we switch to like a light KE core. Say we switch to the lightest KE core. So that still doesn't really fit. So is there heads? No, there's not really going to be too many heads a little lighter than that. Yeah, this is one of the lightest heads in the game because it's so tiny. I mean, maybe? No, that's not really going to matter. Pulse guns are light. Howitzers are light. This VTF is really the main problem with this. Like, if you were to go for like a single slot arm, then sure, I guess. But and do any of the single slot arms even fit on this? I mean, yeah, you could make it a lightweight, but the problem here is that you would then give up any handling. Actually, no, wait, no. What if we went for a different generator? Let's switch back to the dual slots. There's the dual slots. And then we'll switch to the light version of the generator. And then we'll switch back to the core to something decent. Alright, that's the other problem with building this in a lightweight build. Because the lightweight legs have very low defense, you're gonna have like no health and no defense on this. 27,000 health is kind of really low, and these defenses are pretty shit. So if I were to build for like maybe a CE build instead, I mean, you could do that. You could block out CE missiles and just have no defense, but like block out something, which is useful, I guess. But then you become very vulnerable to like Gatling guns, rifles, shotguns, all that kind of stuff would just shred you instantly. So you could do it. It would just be really, really, really fragile, even more so than the medium biped one. You would gain a lot of speed though. You would gain a shit ton of speed. Like 391, that's really high. So maybe if we switch over to like a booster with more sustainability, then we can switch over to like a generator that's more sustainable. And let's switch to a head with better defenses. Yeah, it still doesn't really fix the KE problem. I mean, you're not weak to shotguns anymore, but like, not being weak to shotguns isn't really a huge deal, because shotguns still do good damage even if you do resist them. Which is why they're one of my favorites. FO8, this is the one I use. So yeah, like I was saying, you could do it on a light frame, but it would not be very survivable. You would not have a lot of longevity like this. I mean, you don't have a lot of longevity in the medium bipedal frame either, but like this would be less so. Like, you would just die the second someone saw you and wanted you dead. So now if we switch back to the medium bipedal version, if we were to build, say, like a version that is a little bit more defense oriented, maybe something that's going to try to run in through the front lines, I don't know. Primarily the first thing you would change would be the legs, because these legs have really poor defenses. So you would just want to go for something that has decent speed and good armor. Let's see, which ones? Frequency is probably a good idea. Yeah, if you were to go for frequency here, and then you could switch out to like headpieces that have better defenses. Yeah, like say we just switch to that and to that. No, not quite. So right there, if you want to build like a more defensive version of it, you could do that. You would look a little more spidery. You know, you got that spider face. But you could definitely do that. You would lose a lot of the turning and some of the speed, but you'd be able to survive a little bit more and have slightly more health. But again, that's not really the point of this build. The point of this build is to get in, get out, and do damage. No wait, no, wrong ones. There we go. So there's my build. My headless howitzer user. Hope you enjoyed this enough to, you know, either comment or do all the mysterious YouTube things like liking and subscribing. If you didn't, then whatever. But if you did, then I hope you continue to watch more, because I will continue to make these. It's fun. Have fun. Play Armored Core. Blow the fuck out of everything. And hope you have a good day.